Speaking to us live out of London is Brother Mabrur Ahmed, who is the director of Restless Beings. That's a very interesting name for your human rights organization, Brother Mabrur. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you comment on that name?
We've been around for about 17 years. And I think the name really is something that we've tried to live up to every single day since we've been around, to represent and to be human beings who are constantly restless, continuously restless, and rightfully so because of what we see happening around us, around the world. We're a human rights organization, and so far as or so long as human rights are being abused, let's say, then we should always be restless.
So you are a human rights organization and you offer services such as?
So a lot of our work focuses on the advocacy side of things. So we work with universities, we work with governments, we work with media, highlighting and or showcasing the plight of marginalized communities around the world. And we look at the most marginalized communities around the world, the ones that don't always necessarily get the headlines. And then we back that up with our humanitarian response work, which is, if we have a project and we've discussed and we've worked on the advocacy side of things with universities, media, and government, then we will then go ahead and also try and launch a humanitarian response as well. So most organizations do one or the other. They focus specifically on the advocacy side, or they focus specifically on the humanitarian side. We decided to make our lives very difficult and try and do both at the same time. But Alhamdulillah, we've been running for 16, 17 years, working on these projects. And we've got a project in Bangladesh working on street children. You may have heard of the Rohingya. I think we were the first organization in Europe to be discussing this back in 2009. I've spoken on on Salaamedia many times about the Rohingya. We also have a women's rights project in Kyrgyzstan that focuses on something called Alakachu bride kidnapping, and various other projects around the world. Most of our work, however, is around genocide and around refugees, with a very strong focus on women and children.
hmm I'm going to quote your tweet here. It says, "Hope you had a warm and hearty day with your loved ones. You deserve it like we all do, but our hearts hurt today. Israel did the following: attacked Beit Lahum, Bethlehem, birthplace of Jesus, killed over 100 in Al Maghazi refugee camp, reached 8,500 child deaths, reported actual number much higher, sent a tweet out wishing Merry Christmas while killing 147 today alone. Remember, don't be blind to capitalism. The threat to human rights anyway is a threat to all human rights everywhere." Now, this is a few days ago, and unfortunately, as we speak, we know that the numbers have increased. So, can you tell us about your role in Gaza? And as you said off air, that you have a team in Gaza.
Yeah, so of course, I think everyone right now, and I'm very glad, everyone around the world, or a lot of people around the world, at the moment are advocates, if you like, or activists for Gaza, and that's fantastic. But we have a team in Gaza as well. We've had that team in there probably for the last 5 years or so. Um, since October the 7th, we've actually lost a member of our team. Other members of our team have lost their mothers, their wives,
I'm sorry.
their children, their partners, their brothers, their sisters. Lots of people in and around our team have passed away. And that's the case everywhere. We're just a microcosm of what's happening in Gaza. But also what's happened is, if I include all of our members of our team, there's roughly 12 members of our team. Not everyone is operational at the moment, but in total, our team individually have amassed a total number of 43 displacements themselves. Each of them have been displaced multiple times over. And if we amass them in total, of the 12 people that are on our team, there has been 43 displacements. As you may be aware, even yesterday and this morning, there's around about 170,000 people who are moving from areas like Al Buraj, Nusayrat, Al Maghazi, further south. And this is again going to be maybe the third or fourth displacement per person. we're talking about huge numbers of people having to leave multiple times over and being bombed along the way and being bombed when they arrive and being bombed where they currently are. Um, and it's a horrendous situation. And it's a horrendous situation that the entire world can see. And yet, genocide is one of those things. It's a very, very special covenant, if you like, in the United Nations Charter and all its associated covenants and agreements, that in the world, any country in the world, can invoke an international court of justice, an ICJ case of genocide. Any state can launch that against any other state. And yet here we are, 80 something days in, with a large part of the Muslim world watching, with the large part of the what you call the democracy, loving, free spirited world watching, with international media watching, 80 something days in, 21,000 something killed, 9,000 plus children killed, almost 7,500 bombs dropped, and no country has the moral wherewithal, a standard to decide that actually what is people are saying, what you and I are saying, what we're all calling as clear as day a genocide. No country is bold enough to step forward and actually invoke that international court of justice, the ICJ case of genocide at all. And that, to me, is more horrendous than the bombing itself, because it shows absolute immorality and it shows an absolute apathy on our entire human race.
So, as you sit in terms of the organization that you represent, is it possible to make a noise regarding that? I mean, we're talking about it now, and that's part of it. But do you have the capacity to motivate in that direction?
Or that's our whole reason for existing. That's our whole point of being. So we have been, and we will continue to make the noise. But also, noise doesn't come in one way. We've all been to protests. Protests
Right.
do one thing: they amass numbers. But actually, protest isn't how you talk to governments. Unfortunately, that's not actually how we can communicate. Because as much as we think that protests are the most expressive form of democracy, when you can bring together people on the streets calling for one thing, and so therefore the people in suits should listen to our collective voice. Actually, unfortunately, the mature forms of democracy, this isn't how it works. It works through, from the very basic level, councils around a city, maybe, or around a township, moving up to elected members of or representatives, into the houses of debate and the chambers of discussion, and then only then will we look at actual policy being done. Now, the only way that these people, the people that we're talking about, our councillors, perhaps, in our very local areas, our MPs, our representatives, or even institutions such as like states of offices, the only way that they're going to get information and the only way that they'll be able to move forward isn't off hearsay. Now, even though it's clear as day, live reporting is not used as policy unless it suits them. So as
Right.
you may have seen on maybe the 10th of October, Joe Biden is willing to say children have been beheaded in Israel. Yet that was never seen, but that was absolute hearsay. But because it was convenient, it became policy, right? Other things, 21,000 dead, absolutely clear as day. It's not doubted, it's not contested. Yet that is no longer policy. So if the dance changes constantly, what happens is organizations like ourselves, people like you and I, will be confused as to, okay, so what form of discussion, kind of constitutes to democracy, can constitute to the noise that will change this. And unfortunately, the plight of the Palestinian people and the people in Gaza is not is not of importance. You know, you know, the standard and the count of blood is not the same as it is in other parts of the world, and that's something that, you know, I think our collective histories have already shown and taught us. You know, and that's the cost of capitalism as well.
Hmm. Well, whatever you've said, just to listen to makes one so uncomfortable. Um, isn't even the right description for how we feel, and the helplessness. But of course, we have some teeny weeny bit of consolation, if you like, when someone like yourself says, "Well, we've got people talking to us from Gaza." However, that's also a scary situation because we don't know whether you can, in fact, connect with them or not. So I'm hoping that you can say to me, you do have connection with them. You are getting regular updates. You are being informed of exactly what is happening on the ground there. Is that something you can share with us?
Alhamdulillah, yes, we've been. I mean, there has been some days and some times where there's been an absolute communication blackout. We've not been able to hear maybe for a few days, but you know, across the entire area of Gaza, there is always at some point some of our members of our team who are able to communicate and to report back to us. You know, in terms of hopelessness and in terms of helplessness, yes, that's what we feel often. You know, we're sitting in different parts of the world and we often feel like this. The It's not a small glimmer of hope. Actually, it's the only glimmer of hope, and I think it's quite a large glimmer of hope. Is the people of Gaza? You know,
Indeed.
they 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 their strength of will is incomparable. It's incomparable, and Alhamdulillah, only through their persistence to live. Let's just say their persistence and their willingness to live, do we even have a cause to rally around? And so long as there are some hearts in Gaza still beating, Palestine continues to live on.
We take our inspiration and strength from them. That's unbelievable, but it's happening. Alhamdulillah.
It's how it has to be, and actually, that's the only thing that keeps us believing.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair for your time this morning, Brother Mabrur. All the best for the new year, and we will keep in touch with you and your organization to support, of course, and to share information.
Barakallahu fiqh. Thank you so much for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. All right, next up, we speak to Dr. Abdul Kadir Pir, giving us an update on the increase in COVID numbers.